Welcome to Checkpoint Real Talk, a podcast for security folks who want less FUD and more FUN. In each episode, we'll have lighthearted conversations about security, people, processes, and technology as we react to how they're portrayed in film and TV. We'll bring in experts from inside and outside Checkpoint to break it down. What was accurate? What wasn't? And what can you apply to real-world cyber events? On today's episode, host Syya Yasotornrat, Checkpoint Global CISO Pete Nicoletti, founder of Ethical Hacker Ralph Echemendia, cybersecurity leader Jason Rowe, and president Synectis Advisory Group Clay Moegenburg react to the 1995 movie Ghost in the Shell. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to Checkpoint Real Talk. We are super excited today because we're going to be talking about a movie that I've just heard over and over again. In the world of anime, all my friends keep telling me, you got to do this show. So guess what? We're doing Ghost in the Shell. Today, we've got Pete from Checkpoint joining us. He was the one that was rallying everyone around for this. And by the way, welcome Jason, Clay, Ralph to the show. Guys, welcome to Checkpoint Real Talk.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Really? That's hello, how you're going to say hello to
Fired
me?
Up to be here.
There you. Thank you for that energy. Yeah. All right. No, you guys. Seriously, I really appreciate it. And I know, Ralph, apparently you're like logging in from Germany. So, Guten Nacht, is that what it is?
That is correct.
Ah, beautiful. Well, I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. But, guys, before we get started, why did you pick Ghost in the Shell?
That answer's got to go directly to Jason.
Yeah.
Apparently, this is one of the only movies that has ever made Jason cry.
Probably the series more than the movie. But yeah, I think I'll be the one to take the risk here of being a cliche and go with the anime here. But this one I chose because not only does it have a thematic thread of AI and AI becoming sentient, but in this universe, humans have started augmenting themselves as well. And the more they replace themselves with machine parts, they start to question their own humanity as they start kind of meeting AI in the middle.
It's very prescient.
Ooh, okay.
I mean, if you watch the 95 version, which Jason insisted that is the version to watch, not the new ones with the hot models and not the made-over ones with 3D anime, but the real anime. This is before Blade Runner, this is before a lot of other movies, and there's all kinds of things that come from this movie. It's the genesis of a lot of cool science fiction.
Yeah, indeed, right.
Okay, I did not know that.
That's a fact.
So I did not know that, you guys, and I feel like such the funny host on this one because it is a true reaction for me. So wait, this came and predated Blade Runner? Seriously? I thought Blade Runner was in the 80s.
Let's see about that. That's a good question. Matrix, it definitely, the opening scene with the characters and is Matrix. And this predates
Okay.
Matrix,
Oh, yeah,
I believe.
by a
It
bit.
definitely predates Neural.
Yeah, the original Blade Runner.
Sorry, go ahead, Ralph.
Yeah, definitely. The original Blade Runner was in 82. And I believe The Matrix was in 99, right? So it definitely predates The Matrix.
And what it definitely predates is Neuralink and OpenAI. So this was kind of touching on those subjects before they were even a thing.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Ooh, okay. So,
I think it was late 80s. Late 80s, the first Ghost in the Shell series came out.
okay, so this was a TV show first, right? A cartoon show first, or I'm sorry, anime. Was it a book first, and then they made it into a series, or was it series?
It was based on the manga of Who.
Okay.
Right.
It was a book, or it was a
Yeah.
comic
Okay.
series. Yeah.
Okay. Woo, I am feeling so not cool right now. Thanks, guys. All right, so the premise of it,
Well, you got the ultimate nerd squad on, so We better know this.
Yeah, please educate me, and I assure you, the audience is probably wondering, like, okay, because here's the thing: when we first talked about this, and I sent over clips from the movie, the most recent was Scarlett Johansson, and all of you guys were like, "Wrong movie," and I was like, "Oh man, I think I just stepped on okay, why this version versus the Scarlett Johansson version?"
I can probably take that one too. And I hate to be that guy, but that is just the real dumbed down. The new stuff is just dumbed down, made to be visual candy and mass appeal to everybody. Okay. Completely lost the theme of AI. Completely lost a lot of stuff. It was just borrowed from pieces of the series as well as the movie, and just for movie effects, and to kind of dumb it down, it's missing it. Yeah,
they took the deep thoughts out. The original one has these long, solo, paragraph after paragraph
monologues.
Yeah, and the new one, it's all, like Jason says, it's all visual, and they drop out all the social commentary and what these augmented people are actually feeling. And that's really what, you start hearing what these augmented cyborgs are really thinking. Are they dreaming? Is it real? And then the characters pop up that, they don't even know that their brains were taken over and forced to do things against their will. All of that doesn't show up in the next version. So it's really the original one. If you want to go deep and have the deep thoughts, that's the one.
All right.
And to add a little bit to that as well, is this is one of the first anime films ever to very skillfully blend what they will call traditional drawn animation with computerized imagery. In fact, the wallpaper behind me is from Ghost in the Shell and the original. And again, they were blending these techniques for the first time in anime, where traditionally drawn animation was being used with something that was computer generated.
It's good to know. Clay, I saw you about to say something.
Yeah, and in the first series, right, the first movie, they get into a lot more detail, as Pete was mentioning. Get into more detail about when memories are digitized, and when you have, memories which can be implanted. Jason mentioned Neuralink. When you begin to augment your memories and augment your capacity for thought with outside digitized memories, now you enter a realm where they can be manipulated, so they could become artificial. Are those memories real? What makes a memory, real, or how can you validate that? How can you tell the difference? How do you know if your own memories are real? And that's one of the themes in the original Ghost in the Shell. It wasn't just an action, drama. It was about the fact that, the lines have become blurred between humanity and these cyborgs, as well as what's real versus what's fiction.
Ooh. And
that's a struggle.
Yeah, the opening scene where the woman is actually created in a vat of embryonic fluid, and then she wakes up in an apartment and she has memories and she goes to work. I mean, it predates, like we said, Matrix, but as Clay and Jason and Ralphie are pointing out, people don't know what memory is real and what's not, and what's been wiped and what's been implanted. And, they even they complain about the police say, hey, we don't have a fix for that yet. Yeah. I don't know if you guys remember seeing that section, but if your brain is really fudged up, we really can't fix that. So sorry, your brain is jello and we can't help you.
We can't get your old memories back.
Yeah,
You're stuck with the ones that the hacker gave you, basically.
I mean, a good example of that in something that we have seen in culturally discussing today is sort of the Mandela effect. So many of us remember certain things, and we can all swear by it, but supposedly it never was that way. So what was it? A glitch? Is it the Ghost in the Shell?
Okay, well, hey, I like to say the multiverse is cross-streamed. I have a running theory. I should probably get my tinfoil hat. that the pandemic, I think we crossed multiverses because everything just seems just slightly off ever since. But, well, guys, we can talk about this theoretically, but I think why don't we review a clip and let's go dig a little bit deeper. You guys open
Absolutely.
to that? All right, let's do this.
Hey, what's on your mind?
That robot, did we seem similar to you?
Of course not.
No, I don't mean physically.
Just what then?
Well, I guess cyborgs like myself have a tendency to be paranoid about our origins. Sometimes I suspect I'm not who I think I am. Like maybe I died a long time ago and somebody took my brain and stuck it in this body. Maybe there never was a real me in the first place and I'm completely synthetic like that thing.
You've got human brain cells in that titanium shell of yours. You're treated like other humans, so stop with the angst.
But that's just it. That's the only thing that makes me feel human. The way I'm treated. I mean, who knows what's inside our heads? Have you ever seen your own brain?
It sounds to me like you're doubting your own ghost.
What if a cyberbrain could possibly generate its own ghost, create a soul all by itself? And if it did, just what would be the importance of being human then?
Ooh.
Ooh, I mean, wow, that's the question, isn't it?
This is screaming Turing test. You can't tell even she can't tell if she's, she's actually partially human, entirely human, or purely cyborg.
Right. And the thing you have to understand here is that the ghost in the shell is referring to the fact that, especially with the main character, the major there, she is mostly android at this point. The only thing that's left of her humanity is a small part of her brain that they call the ghost. That's where the consciousness comes from. That's the only thing they haven't been able to replace. If they replace that part, you stop being you. So that's the ghost, and then everything around that is the shell. So she is mostly shell and just a little bit of ghost. So she's questioning her own humanity at that point.
I think this is obviously the metaphor for soul, right? We have our soul, and I like to, one of the ways I would explain is that we're made, we just like computers, is we have hardware, and that's the shell, and then there's some software in there, which is part of that software is the soul, right? And that's what this is talking about here, and the way that was explained is very interesting. One of the lines that really would stick out to me is that just because you're being treated like a human, does that make you human? And that was one of the weird things about this 52-second clip is when she says that I thought that was very interesting. And even if you watch the original Japanese anime in translated, that's still the way it's translated.
Interesting. Ooh, we never question our humanity, do we, as humans? We just don't question where we come from, which is when I watched Westworld, which is another show I want to review. Do you guys ever think about, do you ever question what's going on with Ghost in your shell?
It's usually after a lot of drinking and then hanging around with friends like this. Yes. We do question our humanity.
Yeah, I think right now it's pretty given we're okay with our humanity. The question is, though, I mean, it's like my grandma has a pacemaker, technically a cyborg now, but that's such a small piece, no one thinks twice about that. But where's the gray line start pushing? Once we're 90% cyborg, once our brain starts being replaced in part by machine, then what?
Yeah, I met a girl at a conference. We were in Rovinj, Croatia, and her talk was about augmentation of her body using technology, and she had basically seismic sensors in her feet that she had put in, and we were having lunch near the water, and she said, "Oh, I can feel the water. I can feel the water in my feet." And we're sitting, maybe 40 feet from literally, the water, and she was saying, "Yeah, I can feel when the waves hit the concrete." And I thought, well, that's real interesting. And then I asked her, "Why? Why did you do this?" I mean, I really quite don't understand what you're doing. And she had a very interesting answer. She said it was very much to her like a tattoo. If you're able to modify the way your body looks, why can't you modify the way your body works in some way?
Ooh.
And I thought that was an interesting response and unexpected.
Okay. Reminds me of a girlfriend who's absolutely obsessed with her phone, if anyone that could be more addicted to the phone outside of me, it was her. And she said if there was an ability to implant it into her, like arm, head or whatever, she's like, sign me up. I'm in for it. And I remember asking her, I'm like, dude, that's kind of trippy, don't you think? Like, don't you think you're adding some components to your brain? And she's like, no, because the convenience of it. It'd just be easier for my life. And I'm like, okay, so, well, she'd be the first in line to be a cyborg mesh.
So, something else from this first scene is her struggle with her identity and defining what her soul is, right? What is natively her, which is, the ghost portion, as Jason mentioned, and then what is the shell, what's been wrapped around, which is the Mandela effect that Ralph referred to before. And what's really kind of interesting societally now is to the extent that we create our own echo chambers via social media, which create our own Mandela effect that we want, right? So we almost wrap ourselves and interpret our environment on purpose in a way that helps us to assimilate memories and assimilate our environment and everything that's happening in a construct that we are creating ourselves. So it's there's a direct parallel between Ghost in the Shell and what we're living today.
And who'd have thought, like, something that, like, would have that much of a profound effect today? I mean, it's, 20 plus, don't tell me 30, okay, 20 plus years old.
Science fiction turns into science fact.
Yeah. Ooh, okay, well, on that.
Indeed.
And something else is, when we talk a lot about, in IT, we talk a lot about the, Turing, Turing test and so forth. But in this scene, she's almost performing her own Turing test that she can't discern herself, right? So, very soon, if not now, at this point in time, we're going to have AI that is able to be somewhat, or at least seemingly sentient, right? Although they're not fully sentient, but we're going to have an AI which is able to ask these questions of itself or of us, and we're not going to be able to discern it from another independent, autonomous, living human being. That's
a really good point. I think that we'll have the AIs solving Turing tests before they actually reach AI. I think we're too easy to trick.
I'm inclined to believe that.
Both Turing and Asimov are flipping over in their graves right now, because the AI engines and AI combined with robots are absolutely going to break the 3 rules of robotics, and like you guys are saying, trick the Turing test. So we're at that envelope right now.
Oh my gosh! For the past 8 years, we've had chat bots taking over the public space. At first it was not being used commercially, but now we have a number of customer service bots that are being used that can carry a dialogue with you. They have access to your histories. They can reference things that you've done on their platforms or purchased. It's incredible the flexibility that these bots have, and it's through years of training. And now they're commercialized and they're widespread manner.
So I've got a good one for you. I'm sending meeting bots to my meetings when I'm double booked, and the meeting bot takes notes for me, tells me who had the smartest ideas, and it comes out with awesome information.
All right.
The question I have is, what happens if everybody sends a meeting bot? What gets done in the meeting?
I think we should try that.
Maybe.
I triple dog dare all of you to do that. And by the way, I got to say, there's a lot of companies that just live by meetings, and I don't know why, but their calendars are always booked on meetings. I don't know anyone actually executing on anything, but there's companies that just love to meet with each other. So let's shift gears a little bit here, because I mean, the importance of being human, I think that we could just make that an episode all by itself. But we do want to dig a little bit more into Ghost in the Shell here. I think this is a fascinating movie. So are you guys cool if I move us along to clip number 2?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
It's no use arresting me. I'm not talking to any goddamn cops.
Talk. And just what are you gonna talk about? You don't even know your own name, you stupid dickhead.
Huh?
Can you remember your mother's name or what she looks like? Or how about where you were born? Don't you have any happy childhood memories? Do you even know who you are?
It's kind of harsh.
Nope.
Ghost-hacked humans are so pathetic, it's a shame. And this poor bastard's been hacked pretty badly.
Okay. First off, just from a social, like, human interaction, those are rather rough questions to ask someone to try to help them understand their humanity or lack thereof. So help me understand, why were they going after this particular individual? Is he a good guy, bad guy, or they're just trying to wake up these robot machine, half human, half things? Like, what's the premise of this scene?
Well, I mean, this guy was just a guy, and unfortunately, he got caught up and hacked. So this starts touching on, once you start augmenting your own brain and start augmenting your own memory, then you're subject to security, right? And it's just like we were talking about someone's friend before, that's all about body mods, and that's great. And for a first while, it's probably going to be air gapped and everything will be fine. But once you hook up to the net and you're susceptible to being hacked, now someone can write false memories in there. And if they can write false memories in there, they can pretty much manipulate you into doing anything, feeling anything. And so this guy was just a guy who was unfortunately hacked and manipulated into doing some dirty work for somebody.
Yeah, and the interesting thing too that's very relative to the real world is that, if you watch this movie, you'll see that he's actually sort of the third guy down the line, right? There was a pickup truck guy who was doing a piece of it. There's there's the police people. There's a few different things going on that ultimately they're getting down to this guy who's really, they were just trying to trace the person who was doing it, and they trace it down to this guy, and he's hacked. Right, so very much like in the real world, to some degree, is how do you know you're not hacked, right? How do you know your device is not hacked, your computer, your network isn't hacked, right? Because if you don't even know to look for it, then how would you know, right? And something to what Jason said, which was a few years back, while living in LA, I was part of a thing called, still involved with something called the Science and Entertainment Exchange, which is part of the National Academy of Sciences in DC. And what they did is they took 3 filmmakers and 3 scientists and paired them together to come up with a project. And they financed these little projects to then be shown at an event at the LA Film Festival. And the project that I ended up working on, after speaking to this documentary film director, really, he wasn't even a scripted film director, but we talked about many things. But one of the things he mentioned was that because he came from the docu world, was that among the many different discussions we had was that he had a lady who wanted to have a reality show made about her because she said that she had an implant and that she was controlled by this implant. And we went with that story because actually implants do exist, right? In fact, they're currently used for things like PTSD in certain soldiers and so on and so forth. So we knew there was already research there and already ongoing things that we could take it and then sort of say, well, in the near future. And what he went with was that this woman ended up basically killing the CEO of a company. And in the near future was, water was a big thing. And this was the company who controlled water, right? And the majority of it happens in interrogation. And she just basically says, and the concept we came up with was that she could not control her body, but she could still see what she was doing, but had no control over what she was doing, right? And in the end, as she starts to say too much, she kills herself, right? The interesting part about that was that at the end of it, I met a guy, there was an after party, and this older gentleman came up to me with his wife and said, really enjoyed your presentation, because we all had to do a presentation. I did one on implants and the potential of hacking implants. And then the movie played, this 8-minute scripted short film. And I said, "Oh, thank you very much." Da, da, da. He said, "I'm the founder of the Science and Entertainment Exchange." And I said, "Oh, great, because I have some questions for you. Why? I don't quite understand what the Science and Entertainment Exchange is." And what he said was really not what I expected. He said, "Well, you see, in the 1980s, my daughter had a debilitating disease, and there was no cure for it." What? What does that have to do? Well, you see, I was able to afford the best doctors and scientists, but there was nothing that could be done other than stem cell research. And at the time, the U.S. government had banned stem cell research. So I tried to put everyone in contact and make the connections with Washington, but no one would ever actually answer their phone calls. But you know whose phone call they would answer? I said, "Who?" He said, "Mine." And I said, "Why would they answer your phone call and not the scientists?" He said, "Because I directed the movie Airplane." And most of us here know what that movie is. Yeah. So I said, "No way, dude, you directed the movie Airplane." And he's like, "Yes." And my point was that Hollywood has more power than even science does. To Pete Nicoletti's point earlier, that science fiction becomes science fact, what he said to me was, people think that art imitates life, but that's not what it is. Life is imitating art. And we can put and make anything up in science fiction. And then he stops and says, "What was your favorite TV show growing up?" And I said, "Star Trek." And he said, "And then it's kids like you who take, the communications device and ultimately turn it into a cell phone." So we inspire, we create the future in art, and then life follows it. And that was a very interesting thing to really have to think about, because if anything, with regards to all of this AI talk on whether it's good, bad, or anything, I've always said that, AI for the most part, to me, is just another layer, another level of automation until we start talking about this whole idea of sentient, of being sentient, right? So what was interesting to me is that the danger of the things that we think could happen, the idea of a world like, the Matrix or the Terminator, doesn't exist because, it won't exist for any other reason than us making it so in some way. So that's what we have to be careful with. Not that it itself will make itself so. It's that we are going to, because at the end of the day, we can automate anything, but the question is always why. Sometimes there's no reason to automate or to use technology in certain things. And then there's many reasons too. So I think that's what we have to be careful with is really our decision making, not so much the technology itself.
Ralph, you're so on point. And we're seeing, like, in this past clip, just the fact that if you can override, like, imagine Neuralink. Let's take a step back. Imagine Neuralink. Neuralink last year, Elon Musk shared a recent study where they're able to take individuals that were paraplegic and able to bypass those damaged vertebrae in order to I think they're using primate studies right now in order to allow them to have use of their limbs, which are otherwise cut off from the brain. So now we see this introduction of a technology that can allow us to utilize our limbs that otherwise would be inoperable. And you combine that technology with what Boston Dynamics and Sarcos, right? The Sarcos Guardian, all of these the military exoskeletons. Mm-hmm. Like it's only a matter of time before those can be hacked. And as you just described in that with the interview that you were referring to, you'll be able to see your body do things that you are not actually in command of. We are not far off from that. These are studies that are happening right now in laboratories that within 10 years I can imagine that we're going to see this in the field, in the real world.
The also to tie this all together with what Ralph just said and you just said, Clay, is so there's we talk about the benevolence and the goodness of some of these cochlear implants and other good things that we're connecting to. But here's the problem. we're trying to put together legal frameworks to control AI and control, the FDA tries to control who can do this. But here's the thing. Criminals don't give a crap about these laws and these guidance and how AI is being used. So one of the things that we have to focus on is making sure that we have countermeasures and a good understanding of how the criminals are going to leverage this, what could be great technology and super helpful to humans, but the bad guys don't have those guidelines, and they're financially motivated or politically motivated, and they're going to do very, very bad things with these cool technologies, and they're already starting to do it. We're still starting to see it with, voice fakes and having money stolen, or whether it be targeted phishing based on AI ChatGPT creation. So it's the cat's out of the bag here, folks.
I absolutely agree. So let me ask you guys this, because, hacking a human, like when we think of hacking, and let's be honest, right? Like this is a future state movie, right? This is assumption. This is like in the future that, there's sentient robots or some cataclysmic change in our society. But let's talk about today, right? You guys bring up some really good points, right? As long as you've got a device that's connected over IP somewhere, it's hackable, right? So to me, it was like, the whole concept when we were talking about Internet of Things. I remember jokingly, I was at a house party at a friend's house, and I just said, on my way, walking down the hallway, I just said, they were playing some and I'm going to say it, some crappy country song, and I walked through to the bathroom, and I'm like, oh my God, change the music, put on some Nine Inch Nails. And I go to the bathroom. I come back, and I'm standing there, meeting up someone in the hallway, and I'm hearing Nine Inch Nails playing, but it's not from the big radio, or it's not from the stereo. They're still playing that crappy country song that it's like Achy Breaky Heart, you guys. It wasn't a good one. And I'm like, oh my God, why do I hear Nine Inch Nails? I really thought I had a ghost in my head. It turned out on their thermostat, it heard me say, turn on Nine Inch Nails, and it started playing Nine Inch Nails from this tiny little speaker thing. It was the craziest thing. So no, I didn't hack into it, but it does make me feel like if we can help people understand you can hack a little thing like that, it shouldn't be far-fetched to think you could do that to a robot that's also half human.
Well, I can
think about all the different IoT devices. We're about to hit a ratio of 100 to 1, 100 IoT devices for every human. And, not to plug Checkpoint too much, but that's a risk that we are really looking at very carefully with our new code and trying to prevent that kind of nonsense from happening, because hacked IoT devices create huge DDoS networks. They create all kinds of craziness. So this, we're talking about this movie, but there's so much around it that leads to risks and issues that we're just barely getting our arms around.
Well, I mean, technically, we're being hacked already. So if you've ever seen documentaries like The Social Dilemma, you'll start to realize we have our own cognitive blind spots. Magicians have been exploiting those for years, but now the algorithms are starting to exploit those. So it's slippery slope. Once we start augmenting ourselves and having machines mixed in, doesn't change anything. People are going to start hacking us.
I mean, I'm in the social media business side of it, and I'm also, my background is 20 years in tech. I can tell you behavior is driven by the human need for social media that's already derived by algorithms, whether we can please the social media algorithms. Yes. I would like to give a shout out to Michelle Lax. She actually texted me and she goes, girl, you better if you haven't seen Social Dilemma, you need to. So thanks, Jason, for bringing that up. It's true. I think, do we need a robot takeover for us to get hacked as humans? I don't think so. Is that what social engineering is all about? Just conversing with us and all of a sudden changing our, behavior in some ways?
I mean, one could argue that, to some degree, it can make things more secure, because we sure are hackable now. The wetware is, the kind of numbers that we've seen just explode over the last 2 or 3 years when it comes to scams online. It used to be that, we'd say and Pete knows this, is, the number one method of social engineering is what's on the phone, because you can sound like someone, but they don't get to see you or any of that kind of thing, right? Well, guess what? Now it doesn't even need to be on the phone. They don't even need to hear you. In fact, it doesn't even need to be a real person. You can actually have all of this scripted and done, and with AI even learn how to manipulate and fool people. So, I mean, we've always said that the weakest link in all of this is the wetware. It is us, the humans.
This goes back to exactly what we were saying about the technology just being agnostic, right? It's how we use the technology. If we're already using the technology to hack ourselves with it, then how much is going to be to blame on the AI? Once it's around, it's just going to pick up where we left off.
Yep.
And something really, really interesting in terms of wetware. We're all familiar with CRISPR and the progress in using CRISPR to solve different genetic diseases and so forth. But Dr. Jennifer Doudna, who's one of the principal scientists and biochemists right behind CRISPR, her most recent forays into the human gut biome, and trying to take on some of the challenges that we have related to our own biochemistry, and the fact that you can make small but fundamental changes in your gut biome that could resolve a number of psychological issues, not just not just fundamental gut chemistry, but the creation of hormones, the creation of proteins and so forth, all from the gut biome. And these are, this is a technology which can be consumed orally, in the future. And we could, you could completely modify an individual's perception based upon just the basic microbes in their body. So we're so close to these things, and I mean we live in a world now.
Once again, South Park predicted that. If you ever saw the gut biome, between the latest AI version, the AI one that just came out of South Park, and the one on the gut biome, South Park is way ahead of its time.
I mean, I'm like,
once again, it's life imitating art, right?
Exactly. I'm queen of hangry. Okay, like I can be controlled by chemicals of food. If I'm hungry, I don't care what anyone says. Like, you feed me, I'm a much nicer person to the person that fed me. I mean, 100%. I can be trained. So that's really funny. Okay, so guys, I think we could keep talking all day long on this. And so here's the deal. We can and we will. I highly recommend everyone raise your hand who's going to go home now and watch Ghost in the Shell one more time just because we talked about it. Or maybe for the first time.
Always.
So everyone in the audience, guys, I really appreciate your guys' support. Definitely, let us know your thoughts. So here's where we're at. On a scale of 1 to 10, I like to ask this question. On a scale of 1 to 10 of the reality of this, or how potentially real is this, what would you guys rate it? So, Pete, you first. Scale of 1 to 10, how real is this?
I'm a very pessimistic person when it comes to AI because I've seen and I've done it, and I know how it's corrupting humans already. And we know the government's way ahead of what we're doing. The Chinese are doing things. Their Chinese model just took over. ChatGPT is the most efficient model. I think the point where AI is aware of itself and combines with a robot that can fix itself, a la Terminator, is within just a couple years. I'm very pessimistic.
Ooh, that's an aggressive stance, sir. That's almost you're almost taunting us for another conversation. I feel you on that. I see what you're doing. Clay, what do you think? Scale of 1 to 10.
Well, I'm following Pete's lead on this one. I feel there's a lot that we don't know, and I think that there's nation states and state actors that are well funded and probably already working in this direction. If you've watched Boston Dynamic Robots and Atlas, you understand how far and how advanced that they are just from a physical perspective. I couldn't give you a timeline, but I think this is absolutely within the realm of possibility within my lifetime.
All right, Ralph?
I mean, it's hard to disagree with that. But I don't think, I'm more optimistic for the technology than I am for the humans. I think this is a human problem. Again, how we use it. So I'm not so, I'm more optimistic on the things we can do with this, but I'm very pessimistic on what we are going to do with this. And that's the concern. Because like when Pete said, and defining that term criminal, criminal doesn't mean illegal. And so we have to be careful with the criminality at a humanity level of the use of this type of technology, right? So the biggest of which is if we all think it's about making money, and there's certainly lots of ways to make money, and in fact give the machines the reason to, or the power to teach us how to make money better without being illegal, and that's actually scary, right? To not cross certain legal lines, because back to what Pete said, companies can be following all the rules and so on and so forth, but most of the companies and most of the, it's always years behind the technology. And in this case, we're not talking a couple of years, we're talking dozens of years behind what the technology can do now. So, so again, I want to be optimistic, but there's certainly a growing concern because of the choices we make.
I like it. I see Pete's face like shaking on there. All right, Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, totally. And that's, I think, one of the things that I love so much about this movie is how plausible it really is. Right? I'm probably a lot more pessimistic on timelines. I think we're going to have a lot of really good machine learning systems that are going to really spark some good debates on whether it's reached intelligence or not. And we're going to have those for a long time, probably. But I think by the time we actually achieve true AI, we're going to have augmented ourselves to some certain degree as well. So again, life will start imitating, Ghost in the Shell. It'll be closer to the reality than we think.
Okay, so guys, don't think I did not notice. Not any of you guys gave me a number between 1 and 10 of how plausible it is, but that's okay. No, I love it. So never seeing this show before and the whole series, I'm definitely now intrigued. You guys have sold me. I'm going to check it out. For those that haven't seen it, by all means, please check it out. And for those that are, following on right now, we'd love your feedback. How realistic do you think Ghost in the Shell? What's the timeline? It's not a question of if, it's just when, it sounds like, guys. Is that more or less an accurate statement?
For real.
Yeah,
Very
definitely.
accurate.
Okay, well, on that note, it's been such a fun time chatting with you guys. I know we didn't go through all our clips. I guess we might have to do part 2 or something, but I definitely appreciate your time. So thank you, Pete. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Clay, and thank you, Ralph. And Ralph, go to bed because I know it's really late for you. That, I think, we'll wrap it up for another episode of Checkpoint Real Talk. See you soon, guys. Thanks. That's a wrap on today's episode of Checkpoint Real Talk. If you like this video, hit that subscribe button and some of those other buttons to show us your appreciation. And if you want to learn more or have any questions, please let us know in the comments. We'll see you next time for another episode of Checkpoint Real Talk.